McCormick Branos for the Coachspeak Index. What's up? What's cooking, baby? Hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. Now it's Christmas time. Few weeks till Christmas, which means we have a few weeks of everyone debating whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's truly the most wonderful time of the year. I love it. I love it. Every year we have this argument. We never come to a consensus. Christmas passes and we shelve the debate. Is it shelve or shelf? We shelf. I think it's shelve. We shelve the debate for another year, and boy, we're back. I can feel it. I haven't seen any big arguments yet, but just know they're coming. For Die Hard, a film that was released in July of 1988. July of 1988. Probably think, oh, sounds like Greg doesn't think it's a Christmas movie. Well, I actually kind of do. It has become a Christmas, maybe initially not a Christmas movie, but I think by this point, with this many people watching it at Christmas time, man, I'm getting into the debate now. Let me tell you something though. The French have weighed in on whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. I was out walking the town here in northern France. Went by the cute little movie theater that we have here. Just looking at all the movies that they're slated to show over the next few weeks. And actually tonight, December 5th, they're showing Die Hard as part of their Christmas film program. Now, it's not called Die Hard here in France. The poster for it and the name for it, or the name on the poster, is Piège de Cristal, which is Crystal Trap, which is an incredible title for a film. Not quite as good as Die Hard, which we all know is a Christmas movie. But yeah, not going to be able to go watch it tonight. Got to grind these pressers. Got to do the Lord's work for the people who are relying on the Coachspeak Index to bring them some of that crucial information. But yeah, sound off in the comments on whether you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And don't just say yes or no. Let's hear some reasoning. Let's hear your argument. You know what there's no arguing about? And that is the fact that over $2 million is up for grabs right now over on Underdog Fantasy. I am talking about NFL Playoff Best Ball. It's God's game, but for the NFL playoffs. That playoff picture is starting to crystallize a little bit more every week as we enter the home stretch of the 2024 season. A lot of different, a lot of people talking about the strategy of NFL Playoff Best Ball. Really kind of boils down to anyone who drafts a team that has 5 players who end up playing in the Super Bowl, probably going to find themselves in a live spot to claim some of that $2 million. So you can sign up on Underdog with promo code Coachspeak to claim a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick'em. I will include the link to that in the description. Let's kick off the show. Talk about injuries. Just a few here. First of all, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh said that wide receiver Rashad Bateman's knee is sore. Bateman had to exit the Week 13 game against the Eagles. Harbaugh said it's not a long-term thing. John Harbaugh has a 75% reliability rating on injury Coachspeak. Rams head coach Sean McVay said he expects wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, who has a hand avulsion, to be able to play against the Bills. He also said that Matthew Stafford suffered just a little lateral ankle sprain in Week 13. Nothing that's going to change his weekly rhythm as far as practice and stuff like that. He should be good to go. Sean McVay has a 90% reliability rating on injury Coachspeak. So we expect Demarcus Robinson and Matthew Stafford to suit up against Buffalo this week. All right, let us talk about some running backs. And we will start in Las Vegas. This is head coach Antonio Pierce in his post-game press conference after their Black Friday game against the Chiefs. And he is talking about running back Sincere McCormick.
Could you talk about the emergence of Sincere? I mean, he's
Yeah.
coming along.
Thought he just, man, this is a dude that he's earning more reps. He'll keep playing for us, and the way he's running, tough, physical, hard nose, bouncing off, fresh legs. I mean, you just look at our we've had a long time, 25 attempts for 116, but, him averaging 5.3 versus that defense, and his style of play and his physicality really showed up.
Yeah, tough Chiefs run defense. Anyone who is in the Coachspeak Index Discord saw Antonio Pierce talking about Sincere McCormick before this Chiefs game and just how he loves his running style. Just a really tough, physical guy. Really hits the hole quick. Pierce has a 75% reliability rating on usage and workload Coachspeak. And we're seeing some consistency now from the Raiders offensive line. Finally seeing this group kind of healthy, playing together. Hasn't been the case, of course, throughout this season, but McCormick offers the Raiders a lot more as a runner than Alexander Mattison, who we've seen struggle in the ground game, than Amir Abdullah, who's kind of in that same boat, Zamir White, who has been the least efficient of these Raiders running backs. And we know that Antonio Pierce would really love to run the ball and establish a ground game. And I think Sincere McCormick gives them the best chance to do that. I think we're going to see a good amount of him down this final stretch of the season. Antonio Pierce also had something to say yesterday, which we put into the Coachspeak Index Discord. Pierce said, "What you're seeing on game day from Sincere McCormick is what we saw every day in practice. A guy that ran hard, runs tough, good vision, decisive, hits the hole. First guy's not tackling him right now, and that's been a big key for us in the run game, not getting tackled by that first defender. He's making the most of his opportunity, and he'll keep getting opportunities. I said that last week. I think it was 12 carries he got, and hopefully we can just bump that up a little bit more this week." I mean, that sounds pretty good. And the Raiders have a really nice fantasy playoff schedule. This week, they're going to be playing against the Bucks in Week 14. And then for the fantasy playoffs, Week 15 is against the Falcons. Week 16 against the Jaguars. And Week 17 at home against the Saints. He is not a big pass-catching back, so we will likely see a little bit of game script sensitivity for McCormick. But if the Raiders can stay close in these games, like they've been doing a little bit recently, played KC really tough, and definitely helps if Aiden O'Connell is playing well to keep them in the game. But I think I really think we're going to see a good deal of Sincere McCormick. And if he's out on your waiver wire, I would definitely pick him up. And that doesn't mean that you have to play him this week, but pick him up as a stash. And if he's really showing out and he's a guy that just can't be taken off the field, even when Alexander Madison and Jahmyr White are back, then you have a pretty good play for the fantasy playoffs. So go grab Sincere McCormick. All right, here was a really wild situation from this past week in Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs posted on social media. I'm not sure if it was I believe it was a video, but it's he's behind the camera, and it's a video of Jermar Jefferson, and they're in the Lions facility, and there's a big whiteboard behind Jefferson, and it had a bunch of the Detroit Lions audibles, which you could make out several of them. There was Khloe Kardashian, Caitlyn Jenner were a couple of the audibles, and Dan Campbell was asked about that, and it seemed to take him by surprise.
Quickly on Gibbs, he had a social media post where there was a bunch of plays or partial calls on the whiteboard behind him. Is that something where you need to just remind a player to be smart about what they're posting on social media? Is there anything that could?
Who's that?
I believe Gibbs posted a photo of Jefferson with a bunch of lingo on the whiteboard in the running back room behind him.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did not know that. Okay. Yeah, I need to check on that then. Did not know that. Yeah, I'd rather our stuff not be out there. Thanks.
All right. I'd rather our stuff not be out there. The next day, after, of course, Campbell was given a chance to speak with Jahmyr Gibbs, he was asked about the situation, and here's what he had to say.
I think a lot of people were alarmed when they saw and learned about the photo being released online, maybe being...
No comment.
I know, but just in terms of just repetitive balance, do changes get made or...
No comment.
I love Dan Campbell so much. The way he says that, which, by the way, very rare that we get a no comment from Dan Campbell, but his no comment. Very funny. The day after that, Dan Campbell goes on a local Detroit radio station, and they ask him about the Jahmyr Gibbs social media post, which by this time has really blown up online. And Coachspeak Index, kind of the first to put it out there with the video, and of course all the quote tweets and the hat tip tweets. Dov Kleiman tweets out, "Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs is benched," which we're going to talk about that in a second. But here is Dan Campbell on Detroit, local Detroit radio station. Here it is.
I know everybody protects their playbook, protects their calls. Probably a story that you didn't think you'd be talking about this week, but Jahmyr Gibbs puts out a photo, and I got to imagine he didn't intend for part of the playbook to be out there. How do you handle a situation like that, and does it change the calls that were exposed?
Yeah, I don't. Like I say, I know what it is, but I'm like, you know what? We might as well just put everything out there. I don't really give a crap. I mean, if we're going to lose because of code words, then we're not good enough anyway. So I think we'll just post the whole freaking player and every code word we've got, and it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt us. It won't affect us, and It's all good.
Well, and at this point of the season, too, I mean, you have on film, and I know that Ben Johnson is saying, hey, the cupboard is full, but there's really not a lot of secret into what you're doing 13 weeks into the season.
No, there's not. I mean, it's on tape. It's not like, you can get everything that you need at any avenue. It's on tape. The TV, I mean, you guys at home get more than we do. I mean, until after the game, I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. But we'll listen. It's all out there, and you can find any and everything that you need on the tape, and how to attack people, how they're going to attack you. And no, I'm not losing sleep over that. Now, do I want us posting stuff up from our locker room or our players or whatever? No, I don't, because you don't know what's going to happen with something like that. But no, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal.
Well, the internet likes to run with this, and not that you see some of it, but people want to know, like, is Jahmyr Gibbs going to have his playing time impacted by this? Is there any sort of discipline for him?
Yes, because he got on social media, I'm not going to play him anymore.
Right. Heavy sarcasm for people who are going to read too much into it. Dan, good stuff.
I know. We're fine. As a matter of fact, I joked at him about it yesterday. I messed with him. So it's good. I'm not even worried about it.
By the way, that is the name of that show is Costa and Jansen with Heather. But when that first video of Dan Campbell finding out about it and the initial kind of firestorm that ensued, I talked about it in the Discord. I talked about it. People asked on Twitter. So what's going to happen with Jahmyr Gibbs here? And I told people, because I watch so much of all these coaches. I know a lot about these coaches and what kind of people there are. There are coaches that, would there would be repercussions from them. Dan Campbell's not one of those guys. Okay, he is very level-headed in the way that he deals with things and deals with his players. Jahmyr Gibbs was never getting benched over this, and there's a lot of speculation. Well, maybe the Lions, put this out on purpose, right, for this Green Bay game, kind of playing games. That definitely seems to not be the case, with the way that Dan Campbell's talking here. But also the things that he's saying line up with what we were telling people, that no, Jahmyr Gibbs is absolutely not getting benched. Don't be ridiculous. And this is kind of the current online culture of accounts like Dov Kleiman and what is it, NFL Notify, or like MFL, all these dumb little sensational aggregation accounts. You shouldn't be following them. They're a waste of time. They're going to lead you in the wrong direction so much of the time. Let's stop overreacting to things. Let's take time to think these things through, okay? Especially when we know that Dan Campbell is a level-headed person. He's a reasonable guy. He's not some Dennis Allen. Players love playing for this dude. He gets it. He's not going to bench Jahmyr Gibbs when they're trying to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. I'm sure he had a talk with him about it, but as we heard there, like, he's also joking with him about it. This wasn't the end of the world to put that stuff out there. And like Campbell said, you don't want it out there, but listen, man, we could give him our entire playbook. I don't give a crap. If we're going to lose because of code words, then we're not good enough anyway. And, I mean, it just becomes more clear by the day that Detroit made the right decision hiring him. He's just a certain type of coach. It's like Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin, who doesn't put up with bullshit, but he can deal with bullshit in the right way. And just that mentality of we don't run from the fight, we run to the fight. So let's keep that in mind the next time something like this happens. Speaking of Dennis Allen, here is interim head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Darren Rizzi, talking about Kendre Miller.
Darren, I don't think we've asked you specifically about Kendre Miller before, so obviously in the bits and pieces we've seen of him, there's been some really good stuff, but I just haven't seen too much of it. So.
Yeah, listen, Kendre Miller's a talented football player. There's no one that's going to sit here and ever deny that. Kendre Miller has a lot of talent. It's the reason we drafted him where we drafted him. He had a really, really good college career, particularly his last year in college. You've seen that when he's been active and healthy, that he's a guy that's can produce for the team. He's a really good change of pace back. He brings another dimension to it. I feel like he's coming back. We're getting him fully healthy. Hopefully here to start this week. We'll see what he looks like. But, Kendre brings a little bit of a different type of back that we're playing with right now. So hopefully we can, get him fast forward and get him moving. But I have a lot of confidence in Kendre.
Just considering some of the stuff he's dealt with, is he somebody that you'd want to get like a longer look at in these last 5 games of the season just to see what
yeah, listen, he's obviously fought the injury bug, right? He got hurt the first day of training camp, and then obviously he got re-injured. We felt like when he came back off of the training camp injury that he was kind of back to where he needed to be. He had a couple flashes there in the game when he played, and then obviously had the disappointing re-injury. So I think we've done a great job with the rehab process, with the strength and conditioning process, and now hopefully we get him back to where we're going. So we've amped him up a little bit in the rehab process. We're not just going to throw him back in there, but with where we are right now, hopefully he has a good week of practice, and we'll make a decision on where he's at.
Obviously, an impression that he was, for lack of a better term, in the doghouse a little bit this season. And I don't know if part of that was Dennis Allen's frustrations or an entire coaching staff, but is there some desire to get him like a clean slate, fresh start over this final month?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Mike. I think when I took over a few weeks ago, I tried to give everybody a clean slate. So I don't have a doghouse. My doghouse is empty at the moment. So I don't have a dog at home nor at work. And so I don't have enough time to take care of one. But all jokes aside, that Kendre and I had met the first day, that I took over, and we had a great conversation. And I told him just that. I told him he had a clean slate moving forward, and I'm going to judge him by, based on what he does from that day moving forward. And like I said, there's no one that's ever going to sit here and doubt that this guy's a talented guy. His thing is going to be consistency and staying healthy.
Previously it was said that because he hasn't been able to be out on the field as much, that there's not really a certainty in terms of how much of the offense he knows and things like that. Now that there's been more time, what is your read on his sort of familiarity with the offense?
Yeah, and that was part of my conversation with him, is when he comes back, there can't be that, there's that and listen, I'm one of those no secrets guys. So when I sat down, we said this is the perception about you. The perception is that you don't, all these things that we're saying, these negative things, that are out there, and it's your job to prove these things wrong. And so when you do come back, we got to make sure we're 100% on healthy. Number one. Number two, we 100% know what we're doing offensively, and that's going to be for him to prove. I mean, it's all there in front of him.
How do you feel he responded to that conversation?
I thought, me and Kendre have a really good relationship. I got no issues with him at all, and he's been great since I took over. And so we'll see how he responds on the field. That's gonna tell us all we need to know. How he practices, how he prepares, just like everybody else. 111th, he's got to do his part, do his job, and like I said, hopefully that's all positive.
Clean slate for Kendre Miller. Now, there was some speculation that Dennis Allen placed him on IR as he went out the door with no real injury to Miller. Just, did it out of spite. It does sound like he had a legit injury. Rizzi saying we've amped him up a little bit in the rehab process. We're not just going to throw him back in there. But great to hear that there's a clean slate here. Rizzy saying, no one's in my doghouse. I don't have a doghouse. I don't have a dog. That's really good to hear that. And we saw Kendre Miller in week 18 last year. I mean, the guy has some real juice. I loved his tape coming out of college. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. That really sucks. I think he fits in quite well to a Clint Kubiak system. The Saints offensive line starting to get a little bit healthier. This is a really good handcuff to Alvin Kamara. Maybe, we see them use him a little bit, when he's fully healthy, just to see exactly what they have in him, how he looks in this Kubiak system. By the way, I believe it was yesterday, we put this into the Discord. Darren Rizzi talked about Kendre Miller a little bit more, said Kendre Miller is explosive when he's had the ball in his hand. He's obviously a playmaker. His deal is going to be making sure he's physically ready to go and locked in mentally. And then, quote, he's got to block out the outside noise and just focus on the Giants. So that sounds like we might see him a little bit this week against New York. But it also sounds like, okay, there maybe is some, a little bit of lack of focus and a little bit of maturity that needs to take place with Kendre Miller. So Dennis Allen, I mean, we're not going to completely forgive Dennis Allen for how he treated Kendre Miller, but I don't think we can put 100% of the blame on him. But again, Kendre Miller, really good handcuff, I think, to Alvin Kamara. If something were to happen to him, they have a Week 17 game against the Raiders, which could be a nice matchup. All right, moving on to Los Angeles. This is head coach Sean McVay, who was asked on the Coach McVay show why he stuck with Kyren Williams as the lead back after Kyren's recent fumbles.
Sean, you've made some performance-related decisions at other positions this season. I don't think anyone would have found fault if you did flip the switch at running back and organize that differently for this game, but you didn't. You stuck with Kyren atop the depth chart, and he responded. Why was that the case? Why did you have that sense that he was going to react that way?
Well, I think you believe in the human being. There's enough experience. He's mentally tough. And there was honest conversations that we were able to have about, hey, here's what we need. Here's what we're looking for. Here's the things that you can control. And I thought he did a great job of that. Ron Gould does a great job leading that room. But you did see Blake got some more opportunities. I thought that allowed Kyren to be fresher throughout the game, but still make a tremendous impact. He had played more snaps, really. He's played as many snaps as any back in the league over the last couple years. And so how do we really make sure that we keep him fresh, get the most out of him? But his mental toughness, his physical toughness, his ability to respond when you do face a little bit of adversity and know that, hey, man, I'm right there with you every step of the way. I thought that was really cool, and I'm not at all surprised. And I know he's only going to continue to just push himself, his teammates, and everybody that he's around, to just raise the bar.
Every week, the Rams put Blake Corum on the field for the second drive of the game. And every week, people say, wow, they're finally doing it. Blake Corum is finally taking over this backfield. And that's why sometimes, usage can be a little bit misleading when we don't have the entire context. The Rams' first drive, I believe, 3 and out. And then Blake Corum comes in for his second drive. The Rams have a long, sustained drive, and Corum gets a lot of carries. And then you look at the box score at that point, and wow, Blake Corum has all these carries, and nothing for Kyren Williams. So, yeah, context, not only just for, a one-game sample size, but for the entire season. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's see what's actually going on here. Blake Corum, a rookie, he does look good. when he's in there, but I don't know how many times we have to say it. Sean McVay and the Rams are obsessed with Kyren Williams, and you can think he's a mid player and he's not an elite running back, which, yeah, he's not a Saquon Barkley. He's not a Christian McCaffrey. But very, very important, what coaches think about a player is more important than how we feel about that player. We can think Corum deserves a 50-50 split in this backfield. Okay, that's fine. Maybe it's true. Sean McVay doesn't think that. General Manager Les Snead said after the draft that the Blake Corum pick was, quote, so we don't just totally run down Kyren, end quote. Let's not disregard that stuff. Especially when the track record, not just the reliability rating, but what we've seen on the field has borne that out and keeps bearing that out. Oh, punt return. They put him on punt return. He's going to 0 snaps. This is Blake Corum's backfield. Get serious, people. Come on. Wide receiver. Head down to Baltimore. This was after their Week 13 game against the Eagles, and John Harbaugh was asked about Deontay Johnson's availability.
John, Rashad Bateman, I don't know if the knee injury. Is Deontay Johnson available? I know it didn't look like he played.
Yeah, I'm not really ready to comment on that right now. I will be. Just don't have enough information right now to talk about that.
Woof. Then, I believe it was the next day or 2 days later, John Harbaugh was asked again whether there is any more clarification on Deontay Johnson, and this is what he had to say.
John, I know we asked about Deontay Johnson after the game. Is there any other clarification you can give with that?
Right. At this time, I'm going to have to wait just to clarify it. There's some moving parts there that we're going to have to figure out and explore and just see where we're at. I know it's not the answer you want, but it's the best I can do in fairness to everybody right now.
And do you expect him to continue to be on the team after the bye?
I think, like I said, we'll just work it out, see where we're at over the next few days and this week.
Very rough. And then Wednesday, December 4th, Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta released a statement that Baltimore is suspending Deontay Johnson 1 game for conduct detrimental to the team. And the detrimental conduct in question was Deontay Johnson refusing to enter the Eagles game when the Ravens tried to put him in Week 13. Deontay Johnson, we saw Pittsburgh say, all right, we got to get rid of this guy. Panthers get him. He's going to help out Bryce Young. He's a separator. And then the Panthers trade him away for beans. I mean, nothing. When that happens, when a player this good, and yeah, he has some drops, whatever, elite separator, a really good wide receiver. When a really good wide receiver is traded for nothing, that's a huge red flag. And then what is happening now in Baltimore, another huge red flag. I don't know if he was promised or thought that he was going to be a starter immediately when he came to Baltimore. We got that report from Josina Anderson when the trade happened that this is a depth move. And then we heard that from, I believe it was Todd Monken as well, that this was a depth move for the Ravens. If something were to happen to, like Zay Flowers or Rashad Bateman, which happened in this game, which happened in Week 13. And they say, all right, Deontay, This is your time. This is your time to shine. Get in there. And he said no. Because, and I'm speculating on this, but because he hasn't gotten playing time up to that point, he said, well, no, you're not just going to put me in now. This is such a bad look for Deontay Johnson. And obviously droppable for 2024. But the question is, what are we going to do with Deontay Johnson in 2025 fantasy football drafts? We don't know what team he'll be on. I think that will play a very important factor. Just seeing what type of coach he is paired with in 2025. Maybe there are some coaches who could kind of straighten him out a little bit. Maybe a Dan Campbell type, maybe a Mike Tomlin type. But God, you have to imagine his ADP in 2025 is going to be near the end of drafts, because this dude is a head case. This guy has so much talent. And because he's not being used like he thinks he should be used, he refuses to be used. Just a disaster situation, really, for everyone involved. It's mind-boggling. He's costing himself a lot of money. But people don't always think about that. They don't always think with a clear head. And this is the problem with Deontay Johnson. One more wide receiver here. Speaking of Mike Tomlin, here's the Steelers head coach on when Mike Williams will get involved in the offense.
You talked about moving the ball around. How much more does it need to be moved around to get Mike involved, or when perhaps can he get into the dominoes here?
It's going to happen. It's simply a matter of time. I was really encouraged by the playmaking that he made during the week in preparation for the game. And oftentimes when you're making plays in preparation, it ultimately shows up in play. And so I don't think any of us are pushing the panic button in that regard. I think all of us are just, anxiously awaiting what we're looking at day to day to turn up with a higher level of consistency in stadium in terms of the opportunity.
Okay. Mike Williams has been with the Steelers for 4 games. He played 9 snaps, 25, 19, 17. He saw 1 target in his first game, caught it for a 32-yard touchdown, and then the last 3 games where he's played more snaps in that first game, 0 targets in those games. But Mike Tomlin, who doesn't often talk about player usage and workload, saying really encouraged by the playmaking that he made during this week in preparation for the game. And oftentimes when you're making these plays in preparation, it ultimately shows up in play. So little wink, wink there. Mike Tomlin has a 70% reliability rating on usage and workload Coachspeak. I'm very interested to see what the number total is on Mike Williams' receiving yards this week, and maybe interested in a few ladders on him against Cleveland with a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who will throw that moon ball up there. And we've seen Mike Williams make those big catches many, many times. He's been there for over a month now, had time to learn the offense, get adjusted. This could be the week. Tight ends. We will begin with a tight end who was pretty tight with the bench in week 13. Here is Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris on Kyle Pitts only playing 41% of snaps against the Chargers.
Kyle Pitts played fewer snaps than normal today, didn't have any catches. Are you pleased with what you're getting from him right now?
You know, he's done a really good job all season based on what his total production is for what's going on in the big picture. You know, he has a lot of receivers. We compare him to his peers. He's done such a good job. We got so many people that we got to get the ball to. Sometimes those days happens. I would like to see Cal get more production. I would like to see him have more opportunities. And whether that's us getting it to him or him doing a better job, we'll figure those things out as we go.
Whether that's us getting it to him or him doing a better job, we'll figure those things out as we go. That is not what you like to hear if you are rostering Kyle Pitts, who had a nice little string of games there for a while from week 5 to week 8. And since then, it's been bad. It's been real bad. 1 catch for 11 yards on a target. 4 for 55 on 6 targets. Okay. Maybe bouncing back? No. 1 catch for 9 yards on 3 targets. And this past week, 0 catches on 2 targets. 41% of snaps. Has not been playing a lot for the Falcons, and it kind of makes sense because, again, he is not a good run blocker, and the Falcons would really like to run the ball with Bijan Robinson, and especially when you have your quarterback struggling, who we'll talk about in just a little bit. It's the outlook for Kyle Pitts in Atlanta is not looking very good. Maybe there's a team out there who can use him in a different manner, but he's just kind of a liability. We talked about this many episodes back. Oh, you're a tight end who's functioning as a wide receiver. Okay, well, are you as good as a wide receiver? No, you're not. Okay, well, he's a wide receiver as a tight end. Snip, snap, snip, snap. Dude can't block, and he's not as good as a wide receiver. If you're going to split him out wide, you may as well split out a wide receiver. Bad times, man. One more tight end here, and this is a legit tight end, a real hybrid tight end, a guy who absolutely has wide receiver capabilities, but he's also a dog when it comes to run blocking. Here's Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce on rookie Brock Bowers.
Is there a tight end that Brock Bowers remind you of? Maybe he's a player?
No, this guy's different. It's different because when you're getting matched up on the number 1 corner, when you're getting double teamed throughout the field, and they know we're going to throw the ball, and we're going to keep throwing the ball, and he's winning those matchups, it's hard. I don't know because his body type is different. You know, I mean, I think there were some comparisons early on, like to Aaron Hernandez of that type, but I just think the way he plays the game after he has the ball, I mean, it's really like a running back. He's a receiver when the ball's in the air, and when he has the ball in his hand, I mean, he's punishing people. And he's skilled enough, obviously, with his hands and his catch radius. I can't really speak highly enough about this player. This player is doing a hell of a job this year for us. And it's no secret what we're going to do each and every play when there's an opportunity to throw it to 89.
There was a clip of him on the touchdown pass where he used his left hand to kind of disengage it a little bit, but it was really subtle, so nothing that, yeah. Like just having that, like you just said, savvy at that age.
And I said that from day one, from the first day he walked into the building, that he was a different cat, man. He's all about ball. You can just see him. Everything he's doing, he's always moving. Everything's football related, even when he's walking through the building. And that's just a small sample of what he does throughout, just his releases. You know, his ability, you know, we throw him a fade over there on McDuffie late in the game or third quarter, and his ability to stack him, get on top, and then make a one-hand catch and put his hand up late. Those are things that you see more veteran players do. But obviously a very skilled and tremendous athlete.
Antonio Pierce talked in the same manner about Brock Bowers from the moment they drafted him up until now, we kind of should have seen this coming between Brock Bowers' college tape and what the Raiders were saying about him. And I've mentioned before how the fact that the Raiders spent significant draft capital in 2023 on a tight end and then spent the 13th overall pick in 2024 on a tight end, that is much more of a buy signal than a sell signal or a stay away from this guy in fantasy signal. The guy's just different. He's a wide receiver when the ball's coming in the air, like Pierce said. But when he gets the ball in his hands, he's like a running back. He's making guys miss. He's punishing dudes. And they use him all over the place. Pierce says it's no secret what we're going to do each and every play when there's an opportunity to throw it to 89. Yeah. 14 targets against the Chiefs. 10 catches, 140 yards, touchdown. Also ran the ball for a couple yards. Over his last 3 games, he has 40 targets. Folks, that's a lot of targets. 40 in 3 games. I mean, this is the tight end one for fantasy next year. You can make the argument for Trey McBride, sure. And we'll see if Antonio Pierce is still with the Raiders in 2025 and who their quarterback is. But you got a guy like this, you use him. And they're using the hell out of him, man. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, let's finish up with, got several items here from the Coachspeak Index Discord where every day I watch all of the press conferences and I put everything of note from those press conferences into the Discord. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of actionable information that is going in there that you just never see online from the beat reporters, from anyone. So might want to get in there. Start off here. Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins had a rough few weeks. Brutal outing against the Chargers in week 13. 4 picks, 0 touchdowns. Raheem Morris was asked whether he will stick with Cousins as a starter. He said, quote, "Yeah, we've got no issues with that. I don't think that's going to be the issue around here. That guy's carried us. That guy's got us to the point where we're 6-6. First place in the division. Still got everything in front of us. Despite what happened today, it's up to us to bounce back and find a way to win football games, and there's no better man than 18 to go do that for us," end quote. I mean, saying that this guy has got us to the point where we're 6-6, that's really nothing to brag about. Coach Morris also said that he did not think about making a QB switch late in that game. Falcons, of course, took Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick in this draft, but they don't seem to want to use him this year. Raheem Morris has a 45% reliability rating on depth chart Coachspeak. That is a low sample size. Carolina head coach Dave Canales was asked about Jonathan Brooks in his post-game press conference from week 13. Said, quote, "Really encouraged by his progress from the first week to the second. It was great to get him some touches so he can get that experience that he needs," end quote. And a few days later, Canales said the vision is for Chuba Hubbard to go out there and run as hard as he wants to, and then us not skip a beat when Jonathan Brooks pops in there. Just let the progression for Jonathan happen naturally. Last week, you saw his confidence. You saw his skill set come alive, breaking tackles, running hard, those types of things. I just hope he's able to stack 1 week at a time. So, yes, Chuba Hubbard had the fumble, but he is still their lead guy, it sounds like. And, you know, we'll see a little bit more of Jonathan Brooks Not sure if it ever gets to a 50-50 split this year, but we see the vision that Canales has for this team and for this backfield. And Jonathan Brooks looked really good in Week 13 with his limited opportunities. Guy runs really hard. He makes guys miss. Really exciting for his second NFL game. This guy has a very, very bright future in the NFL. Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski said that going into the Week 13 game against Denver, we wanted to get Jerome Ford good work. Quote, there will be some moments where you lean into Nick for certain schemes and certain moments, and there will be times when you lean into Jerome. I think it's based on a bunch of different factors, end quote. That Nick he's referring to, of course, not Saint Nick. It is Nick Chubb. And this is ugly for fantasy, ugly for Nick Chubb in fantasy for sure. Broncos head coach Sean Payton was asked about Jaleel McLaughlin's Week 13 performance versus the Browns. Payton said, we felt like some of the wide zone stuff was going to be good. He had a lot of good runs. So part of it was the scheme that was successful. We saw other teams have success with it. So anyone who watched that game might think, oh, Jaleel McLaughlin got a lot of work here. 14 carries, a couple targets. Well, that was on 24 offensive snaps, which we saw happen last season where Jaleel McLaughlin doesn't play a lot, but when he's in, they do like to use him. And this is Sean Payton being Sean Payton. There's no one running back here. Whatever Sean Payton feels like the game plan necessitates for that week, that's the running back that he is going to go with. So if you're looking at McLaughlin's 16 opportunities from this game, and McLaughlin did look good at times in this game for sure, but don't think that they are all of a sudden now going to be riding Jaleel McLaughlin for the remainder of the season. It was a game-specific plan that they had for him. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid was asked whether he expects Isaiah Pacheco's workload to increase. Reid said, quote, yes, I would say yes. We wanted to get him into the mix, get him caught up with the speed of the game. We were thinking right around 20 plays, end quote. That was in reference to the Chiefs' Week 13 game against the Raiders. There was that report from Ian Rappaport that there were no limitations on Isaiah Pacheco, full go for Week 13. And then we saw him not play a ton of snaps. Of course, yes, the Chiefs are going to kind of ramp him up. It's what the Chiefs do usually when guys are coming back from lengthier injuries. And this is kind of a layup Coachspeak item here from Andy Reid. Yes, of course, we all expect Isaiah Pacheco's workload to increase from these 20-odd snaps that he saw in Week 13. So, talked about this before, having on the website that each piece of Coachspeak is weighted differently because, again, looking at this is such a layup kind of thing. So for it to come true, it's going to go in the database, but it's not like, oh, this is really going to increase his reliability rating, which, by the way, 60% on usage and workload Coachspeak for Andy Reid. Vikings offensive coordinator Wes Phillips was asked about Aaron Jones's fumbles. Phillips said, quote, he's been a great player in this league. We've got full confidence in him, and it's not going to affect the way we operate going forward, end quote. Kevin O'Connell also, the way that he talked about Aaron Jones in press conferences this past week, very positive. Don't expect much of Aaron Jones's workload to drop off. And then finally, Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles on Bucky Irving. Quote, he's getting more comfortable with the offense. And the more comfortable he gets, the more you can give him and the more he can do, end quote. Bowles said that Bucky and Rachaad White are running well. We're happy with both of them. Said, quote, Bucky has a skill you can't teach. He can make people miss in the hole. He's tough on the inside, end quote. Said that using Bucky and Rachaad White together seems to be working out for us. And then Bowles was also asked about Bucky Irving getting injured on kick return duties and why he was in there. Bowles said, quote, he's a heck of a kick returner, and he's one of our best kick returners, and he's been back there all year, so he's in there because he's one of our best guys, end quote. And asked when Bowles was asked whether there's any thought about taking Bucky Irving off kick return duties, Bowles said, quote, it's week to week, we'll see, end quote. Yeah, Bucky Irving looks really good out there. Terrific with the ball in his hands. And Liam Cohen, his offense, I mean, running backs can really eat here, and the right type of running back can really eat. They have a kind of a mauling offensive line now, athletic offensive line that can really get out in space, and they just need to make a hole for Bucky, make one guy miss, and Bucky can do some real damage. And then on the big kind of offensive line movement stuff where they're going a little wider zone, those offensive linemen getting downhill and creating even more space for Bucky Irving, who doesn't need a ton of space. He makes his own, but when you create space for Bucky Irving and then he can create space on top of that, very exciting football. So props to Liam Cohen for the offense that he is putting together down there in Tampa. All right, that does it for this week. Hope you all win your Week 14 matchups. If any of you are going against each other, I hope you tie. Yeah. Why don't you? You know what? Christmas time, and the best gift that you can give the Coachspeak Index is subscribing to the YouTube channel. How about that? Leave your diehard comments, your piège de cristal comments, and we will see you next week. Sarah, take us out.